Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission here is to take a stack of source material, often overwhelming in its detail, and distill the core knowledge and surprising insights, the nuggets you need to be truly well-informed.
And today, we are deep diving into a figure whose life story is just so wildly successful across so many different fields that, honestly, it almost borders on the unbelievable.
We are focusing on Sir Brian Harold May. Now, the world knows him, of course, as the architect of sound and co-founder of Queen.
Right, but the material we've gathered reveals this singular, extraordinary polymath whose intellectual curiosity just drove him to the highest peaks in three distinct, and I mean immensely demanding, careers.
Global rock stardom, rigorous astrophysics, and intense political and animal welfare activism.
It's the ultimate tripartite career.
Exactly. So the mission for you, the listener, is not just to catalog his achievements. I mean, anyone can read a Wikipedia page, but to really understand the mechanism of his success. We're searching for that single unifying methodology, that methodical rigor and intellectual approach that allowed him to not only participate in these worlds, but to absolutely excel in all of them, sometimes decades apart.
It's that aha moment, isn't it? The realization that the same painstaking dedication he used to build his iconic guitar is the same dedication required to solve complex astrophysical problems.
And it's the same intellectual honesty he applies when he's challenging government data on wildlife conservation.
It is. It's the common engine driving everything.
And before we unpack these three pillars, we have to establish his extraordinary standing. Born in 1947, Sir Brian May's contributions have been recognized at the very highest levels of the British establishment.
That's right. He was named a Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, a CBE, way back in 2005 for services to music and charity.
And then really cementing his status as, I don't know, maybe the most versatile national treasure the UK has produced.
He was appointed a Knight Bachelor by King Charles III in the 2023 New Year Honors, again, specifically for services to music and charity. So we are truly discussing a figure whose achievements span the charts, the laboratory, and the legislature.
Okay, so let's unpack this phenomenal life. Let's start where his fame truly solidified, the rock and roll legacy of Queen.
Well, May's musical foundation started early, certainly well before the big arenas. He was in a band called 1984 while he was still at Hampton Grammar School.
But the crucial stepping stone was Smile, wasn't it? A progressive rock trio formed in 1968.
That's the one. Smile included May on guitar, Tim Staffel on vocals and bass, and a certain Roger Taylor on drums.
Ah, so the pieces were already coming together.
They were. It was a tight three-piece that lasted only 2 years until 1970, but it was absolutely essential. And what I find most fascinating about this early period is this immense, almost defining choice he had to make.
Right. The sources really highlight this. This is a huge fork in the road for him.
It is. May had already completed his BSc in physics at Imperial College London with honors. And he gets this invitation from Sir Bernard Lovell, the renowned radio astronomer.
The Sir Bernard Lovell.
The very one. To continue his work at the prestigious Jodrell Bank Observatory. I mean, this was a clear pathway to a highly respected, established scientific career.
But he declined. He chose to stay in London to keep Smile going. It's just, it illustrates this early, almost irreversible commitment to music over science.
Can you imagine the deliberation behind that? Turning down an opportunity like Jodrell Bank, a monumental institution for the uncertainty of a small rock band?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But it just shows the depth of his musical passion at that time, a commitment that had to be absolute to justify setting aside such a secure future.
And when Staffel left Smile in 1970, that passion was validated. A close follower of the band, a guy named Freddie Mercury, joined.
And once bassist John Deacon was brought in, Queen was formally born in 1971.
And the rise was swift and monumental. We're talking about the period from the mid-70s through the mid-80s where Queen just redefined arena rock.
Albums like A Night at the Opera showed this level of musical sophistication that was, pretty much unprecedented in hard rock at the time.
And it all culminated, of course, in that universally celebrated, career-defining Live Aid performance in 1985.
Absolutely. But when we analyze May's place in Queen, we need to look beyond just the lead guitar, right?
Oh, absolutely. His vocal work was fundamental to the band's signature sound. In Queen's very distinctive three-part harmonies, May consistently provided the lower range backing vocals.
He added that depth, that ballast underneath Freddie Mercury and Roger Taylor's higher registers.
Exactly. But he was also a very accomplished lead vocalist when the material called for it. He sang the first verse of Who Wants to Live Forever.
And he took full lead on some of his own key compositions, like the Acoustic 39.
A skiffle influence track that, and this is so Brian May, blends physics concepts right into its lyrics.
Of course he did. And the Softer Good Company as well.
He was also the primary creative force behind several emotionally significant tracks. For instance, he took the main writing role and the composition coordination on one of Queen's most poignant and powerful songs.
The Show Must Go On.
The Show Must Go On. It closed their final album with Freddie, Innuendo. It was really his job to coordinate the band's input to bring that just devastatingly powerful track to completion.
And speaking of composition, this is where his versatility is just crystal clear. He didn't just write guitar parts. He wrote world-beating anthems across every single genre the band touched.
The catalog is just astonishing in its breadth. I mean, contrast the sheer simplicity and rhythmic genius of We Will Rock You, a track designed specifically to get the audience involved.
To get them stomping their feet, yeah.
With the layered harmonies and bombast of a track like I Want It All, which is this power rock masterpiece.
And that was inspired by his future wife, the actress Anita Dobson, right?
Mm.
Just her saying she wanted everything right now.
That's the story. And the list just keeps going. The groove of Fat-Bottomed Girls, the raw energy of Now I'm Here, the complexity of the power ballad, Save Me.
And the science fiction epic Flash, written for the Flash Gordon soundtrack, which again connects right back to his lifelong interest in space and visual media.
It's also important to note how their collaborative process evolved over time. After the triumph of Live Aid in '85, the band entered this highly collaborative writing phase.
One Vision is a good example of that.
A perfect example. It was initially spurred by a riff and an opening section from May, but the lyrics and the final arrangement were co-written by all four members.
And by the time they reached their 1989 album, The Miracle, the collaboration was so integral that they just decided to credit all the tracks to the entire band, right?
Exactly. Regardless of who provided the initial spark. But, you know, interviews confirm May was still the main creative force behind tracks like I Want It All and Scandal.
And Scandal came from his personal frustrations with the intrusion of the British press into his life at the time.
Mm-hmm. The period immediately following the death of Freddie Mercury in 1991 was, well, understandably devastating.
The sources describe just this enormous emotional blow. And the way May coped offers a crucial insight into his character.
He committed himself fully to work. He called it a form of self-prescribed therapy.
He threw himself into his solo career, believing that staying intensely busy was the only way he could navigate that grief.
Joe Elliott from Def Leppard confirmed this. He noted that losing Mercury just ripped the heart out of Brian, but that he seemed to find solace in completing his first solo project.
And that project was the album Back to the Light.
And that effort included the really powerful single, Too Much Love Will Kill You, which he co-wrote with Frank Musker and Elizabeth Lamers.
And that track was a massive success. It won the Ivor Novello Award for Best Song in 1996.
It did. After, of course, an earlier version with Freddie's vocals was released posthumously on the Made in Heaven Queen album.
His solo tours, under the Brian May Band banner, allowed him to really step fully into that role of lead vocalist and band leader. He was supporting huge acts like Guns N' Roses.
He even incorporated elements of Queen's history into his solo sets. He'd perform a few lines of Love of My Life and encourage the audience to sing along, continuing that tradition Mercury had established.
But despite the success of his solo work, May always remained dedicated to Queen's core legacy, supervising the careful remastering and release of the band's vast catalog.
The desire to play those iconic songs on a big stage, though, it just never went away.
And so the first major return came in 2004, with Queen plus Paul Rodgers.
And this is a point May always emphasizes. Rodgers was featured with Queen. He wasn't trying to replace the irreplaceable Freddie Mercury.
Right, and notably, the retired bassist John Deacon opted not to participate, which kind of preserved the original four pieces' unique space in a way.
It did, and this partnership was incredibly robust. It lasted 5 years. They released one studio album in 2008, The Cosmos Rocks, and they played to these massive audiences globally.
I remember reading about a spectacular show in Ukraine that drew an estimated 350,000 fans.
That's the one! It just demonstrated Queen's enduring appeal.
That collaboration ended in 2009, but the stage found them again after they performed with Adam Lambert, who was then an American Idol finalist.
The real spark, though, that ignited after the 2011 MTV Europe Music Awards.
Ah, yes. Queen was receiving the Global Icon Award.
They were. And Lambert closed the ceremony, performing several Queen hits with May and Taylor. And the crowd response, I mean, the sheer energy and the vocal compatibility, it was so overwhelmingly positive and dynamic.
That it led directly to the formation of Queen plus Adam Lambert in 2012.
And this incarnation has proven to be one of the most successful continuing legacies in rock history. Their performances are often landmark events.
Oh, absolutely. Think back to closing the 2012 Summer Olympics in London, where May performed that massive solo. Or, more recently, the centerpiece of the 2022 Platinum Party at the Palace.
That moment was pure May genius. We're talking about the opening comedy sketch where Queen Elizabeth II and Paddington Bear are tapping their teacups together.
To the beat of We Will Rock You.
In rhythmic precision. Before May and the band launch into their set right in front of Buckingham Palace, it just seamlessly blended this massive rock anthem with national tradition. It was perfect.
And the band's future is still active. The sources note their planned 2025 BBC Proms performance, where they are set to join the BBC Symphony Orchestra for a new, grand orchestral arrangement of Bohemian Rhapsody for its 50th anniversary.
It just shows how May is constantly seeking new ways to present and interpret their foundational works.
So that is the rock legacy, the co-founder, the songwriter, the driving force. But the depth of his contribution is really rooted in his highly personalized musicianship. Let's take a deep dive into the very particular flavor of his genius, starting with his place as an undeniable virtuoso.
Well, May is consistently revered by his peers. He was voted the 7th greatest rock guitarist in a 2005 Planet Rock poll.
And in a 2012 Guitar World poll, he was ranked the 2nd greatest guitarist of all time.
Even Rolling Stone, a publication often criticized for underrating classic rock players, still placed him at number 33 in their 2023 list. I mean, his status is really beyond dispute.
And his sound is just so unique, it's immediately recognizable regardless of the song, and that's incredibly rare in music.
Andy Powell of Wishbone Ash praised his incredible finesse, amazing fluidity, noting the tone and technical control are just unparalleled.
The difficulty of achieving that sound is what really makes the point, though. Steve Vai, who is an absolute guitar virtuoso himself, he admitted he can mimic almost any other player. But Brian May.
Vai stated, and I quote, "I can listen to any player and pantomime their sound, but I can't do Brian May. He's just walking on higher ground."
That analysis from Vai gives us such a critical insight into May's contribution. Vai calls his work rich and so specific that it feels essential to the composition itself.
He adds that nobody to this date could do what he does. And I think the most profound takeaway is that his solos aren't just exhibitions of speed. They are melodies, and they're perfectly in place.
They serve the song's architecture, like a carefully placed structural beam in an engineering project.
That architectural mindset is so evident in his most famous technique, layered harmonies. He's not simply doubling or tripling a melody. He's known for this meticulous arranging using multi-part guitar lines that are often contrapuntal.
Okay, let's stop there for a moment. For the listener, what exactly does it mean for a rock harmony to be contrapuntal versus, say, parallel, which is more common?
Well, parallel harmony means all the voices are moving in the same direction, maintaining the same interval. Think of a simple chord being moved up or down the fretboard.
Okay.
Contrapuntal, or counterpoint, is derived from classical music. It means that while the notes are harmonizing, the individual lines are actually moving independently. Think of it like separate conversations happening at the same time that somehow resolve into a single, beautiful agreement.
That requires immense control, both technically and intellectually.
Exactly. It's the intellectual rigor of a scientist applied to sound. You hear this sophistication on albums like A Night at the Opera and A Day at the Races. He's essentially composing a quartet of guitars.
You can hear it when he imitates instruments like a Dixieland jazz band in Good Company, or even in the sophisticated vocal canon in the Prophet song.
And this meticulousness brings us directly to the source of his sound, the homemade marvel, the Red Special.
This is such a critical moment for understanding the unifying thread of May's life, that perfect blend of engineering, physics, and artistry.
The Red Special wasn't born of wealth or convenience. It was born of necessity and physics. Brian and his father, Harold, built it together when Brian was only 16.
They didn't have the money to buy a high-end guitar, so they approached the problem like engineers.
Exactly. What materials do we have, and how can we use them to maximize vibration, tone, and sustain?
And the materials they used are just legendary for their bizarre salvaged origins. The sources tell us the neck was lacquered with Ruston's plastic coating, just a common sealant.
And the wood itself was salvaged from a genuinely old piece of furniture part of an 18th century fireplace mantelpiece, chosen presumably for its density and age.
It's a literal collection of repurposed household objects turned into a precision instrument. Think about the tremolo system.
The springs are motorbike valve springs. They provide a very specific stiff tension. And the tremolo arm itself was ingeniously fashioned from an old bicycle saddlebag carrier.
And even the small details speak to this ingenuity, the position markers, those dots on the neck.
Mother of pearl buttons.
And the tremolo lock knob was fashioned from the end of a knitting needle. It's just an engineer maximizing utility from limited, non-standard resources.
And the success of this design was absolute. The guitar was so perfectly tuned to May's needs that he never seriously played another instrument for decades, aside from necessary backups.
The sources mention he'd originally planned to build a second guitar, but those plans were just shelved.
But not lost. Those sheer technical details were later used by a luthier, Andrew Guyton, around 2004-2005, to build a second instrument called the spade, due to its distinctive body shape.
It just demonstrates the enduring quality of his original amateur engineering blueprints.
And his unique approach extends to the playing technique itself. He famously rejects the flexible plastic plectrum used by virtually every other rock guitarist.
Instead, he prefers the rigidity and specific sharp edge of a coin, specifically a 1970s sixpence.
He carries these particular coins with him, noting that the metal edge allows for superior control and a very particular, almost scratchy or chimey attack on the strings that contributes heavily to his signature tone.
And this emphasis on a pure physical tone connects to another famous element of Queen's early work.
The bold statement on their album sleeves, no synthesizers were used on this album.
Right. That was a deliberate statement against the prevailing trend in rock at the time. They were asserting that every sound, from the orchestral swell and procession to the chime effect in Bohemian Rhapsody,
It was achieved purely through acoustic manipulation, May's layered guitars, or the band's vocals.
Okay, let's delve into the amplification chain that gives him that massive legendary sound. I read that Marillion guitarist Steve Rothery, after sharing a stage with May, said the sound was so incredibly loud.
He did. He compared the volume coming from his backline to a jumbo jet taking off.
So how does he achieve that signature sound with what is really minimal gear? It's a remarkably simple, pure approach.
It's defined by the Vox AC30 amplifier. May uses them almost exclusively, often running 6 of them simultaneously on stage.
And crucially, they are run at full volume on the normal channel, not the slightly cleaner or brighter top boost channel that pushes the tubes to their absolute limit.
Right, and running a vacuum tube amplifier at full volume generates natural compression and this incredible harmonic richness. But what gives him that specific aggressive bite, that endless sustain?
That would be the treble booster.
That is the treble booster. This is a small, specialized preamp pedal that hits the front end of the amp with a massive signal boost, a clean boost that increases volume and treble frequencies. He started with the Dallas Rangemaster, then moved to a Pete Cornish TB-83.
Which provided a massive 32 dB gain.
And later to Friar's Booster. That immense amplified signal just slams the AC30's preamps, forcing them into their characteristic overdrive.
And we can't forget the John Deacon connection here.
Right, the DC amp. This was a tiny transistorized amplifier built by Deacon from scavenged components, powered by a 9-volt battery.
And May used this small amp extensively in the studio, and still does, to achieve specific overdriven, harmonically complex sounds at low volumes, especially on tracks that required that intricate layering.
This entire chain, combining his custom-built guitar with simple, powerful amplification, is what delivers that rich, singing tone.
It's a beautifully simple, almost scientifically controlled approach to sound production. Now, moving to his influences, who shaped this virtuoso style?
Well, his earliest foundational influences were the clean, sophisticated guitar sounds of Cliff Richard and the Shadows, particularly the lead guitarist Hank Marvin.
May described the Shadows' music as the most metallic thing out at the time.
He later fulfilled a lifelong ambition by performing with Marvin, and of course he naturally cites the heavyweights, the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, The Who, Jimi Hendrix, Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton. He called The Who my inspiration for their raw power.
He gives specific, granular credit to Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin.
Saying he doesn't think anyone has epitomized riff writing better than Page. But here's the most critical piece of influence data.
The unexpected hero. Who does May credit with giving him his actual signature sound?
Rory Gallagher.
Ah, interesting.
May recalled seeing Gallagher's battered Stratocaster and just being mesmerized by the sound. He stated plainly, "It was Rory that gave me my sound, and that's the sound I still have."
Wow. That's powerful. It shows that even for such a unique stylist, the sound is often a reaction to a powerful early inspiration.
So we have the rock god, the virtuoso, and the inventor. Now let's transition into the life he deliberately put on hold for 2 decades, the academic and scientific path. It's perhaps the most compelling evidence of his consistent intellectual dedication.
This is where the story truly becomes unique. He had the academic pedigree early on, earning his BSc in physics with upper second-class honors from Imperial College London. He was, as we said, perfectly placed for a career in pure science.
And in 1970, concurrently with the formation of Queen, he began his PhD research at Imperial, and his subject was incredibly specific and demanding.
A survey of radial velocities in the zodiacal dust cloud.
To simplify that complex title for you, the listener, he was studying reflected light from interplanetary dust. Specifically, the light reflected by particles orbiting the sun in the plane of the solar system.
And he was using Doppler spectroscopy to determine their speed and direction, their radial velocity. This requires intricate, highly specialized optical and astronomical equipment.
He worked at the Tide Observatory in Tenerife for his initial observations, and he was so diligent that even before he abandoned the work in 1974 for Queen's Ascent, he managed to co-author 2 peer-reviewed research papers based on his initial findings.
So he was already publishing world-class research as a young man.
He was, but when Queen's success went global, the choice was made. The rock star won. He abandoned his doctoral studies in 1974.
And most people, once they've achieved that level of global fame and fortune, they never look back at the dusty, painstaking world of academia.
Yet, decades later, the guitar hero returns to the academic halls. He re-registered for his doctorate at Imperial College in 2006, 32 years after walking away.
This return is a stunning testament to his character. He was able to submit his revised thesis in August 2007.
And the reason this miraculous return was even possible is so telling. Very little intervening research had occurred on the specific topic of zodiacal dust in the subsequent 33 years. His foundational work was still relevant.
So he essentially just picked up where he left off, completing a thesis some 37 years after he started it, earning his PhD in astrophysics in 2007.
He described the subject as one that had been unfashionable, but which had become in demand again in the 2000s due to new satellite discoveries.
Let's detail the rigor involved here. To investigate radial velocity, he used absorption and Doppler spectroscopy of zodiacal light. This required the use of a Fabry-Perot interferometer,
which is a highly technical optical device used to measure the wavelength of light with extreme precision.
Okay, so for the non-physicists listening, how does a Fabry-Perot interferometer help determine the speed of dust in space?
It's all about precision filtering and the Doppler effect. The interferometer consists of 2 highly reflective parallel glass plates. Light entering this device is partially reflected many times, creating an interference pattern.
And the spacing of the fringes in that pattern is incredibly sensitive to changes in the wavelength of the light.
Precisely. By measuring minute shifts in the absorption lines, the spectral fingerprints of the reflected sunlight from the dust, they can determine if the dust particles are moving toward us, which is a blue shift, or away from us, a red shift. It's a method that requires just meticulous calibration and observation.
That focus on optics, light manipulation, and precision measurement, studying how light is reflected and absorbed by specific materials. It brings us right back to the Red Special.
Doesn't it just?
He built the guitar using specific theories of vibration and density. He finished the thesis using specific theories of light and velocity. It's the same intellectual machinery applied to fundamentally different problems.
Exactly. And his scientific contributions did not stop with the degree. He became a visiting researcher at Imperial College and served as Chancellor of Liverpool John Moores University from 2008 to 2013.
An appointment that really recognized his deep contributions to astronomy.
He also embraced the role of science communicator, recognizing that his platform could reach millions. He co-authored popular science books with the legendary Sir Patrick Moore and Chris Lintott, including Bang, The Complete History of the Universe, and The Cosmic Tourist.
What's truly astonishing, though, is his active role as a collaborator with international space agencies. He was a recognized science team collaborator on NASA's New Horizons Pluto mission.
In fact, he was present at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab for the fly-by-watch party of the Kuiper Belt object Arrokoth, where he performed an updated version of his own celebratory composition, New Horizons, which he wrote for the mission.
His contribution was highly specialized and practical, too. He leveraged his expertise in stereoscopic photography 3D imaging to help create the first stereo anaglyph of Arrokoth based on the images captured by the spacecraft.
He applied his lifelong passion to cutting-edge planetary science.
And his planetary work continues in the 2020s. In 2023, he contributed to NASA's OSIRIS-REx mission, helping with the successful collection and delivery of samples from the asteroid Bennu.
He also received the JAXA Hayabusa 2 Honor Award for producing stereoscopic images of the asteroid Ryugu.
And if we connect this back to a crucial public service component, he co-founded Asteroid Day in 2014.
Which is a global awareness campaign designed to educate the public about the risks posed by near-Earth objects and the need for planetary defense strategies.
It is entirely fitting, then, that asteroid 52665 Brian May is named in his honor. He has literally cemented his place in the cosmos he once studied theoretically.
So we have the rock star and the scientist. Now we move to his third great passion, activism, a field where he applies his platform, his commitment, and his data-driven scientific approach to highly controversial political debates.
May founded the animal welfare organization Save Me in 2010, named, fittingly, after his power ballad.
The central mission is retaining the Hunting Act 2004, which banned fox hunting with dogs and campaigning intensely against the culling of badgers in the UK.
The Badger campaign is where his scientific background and his platform collide most forcefully. The government's justification for badger culling is the perceived need to control the spread of bovine tuberculosis, or BTB, to cattle herds.
And May has taken a very clear and often confrontational stance on this policy. He controversially stated that nobody has been able to prove a mechanism for the transfer of BTB from badger to cow.
He's arguing that the culling has no proven scientific benefit in reducing BTB rates and is therefore cruel and unnecessary.
Now, this is a highly politically charged issue, and we must adhere to impartial reporting. The sources clearly detail May's argument, but for you to understand the full debate, we need to introduce the government's justification and the farmer's perspective.
Absolutely. The arguments for culling are often driven by economic and emotional factors within the farming community. The government's official position is that badgers act as a reservoir for BTB.
And farmers face these devastating herd losses when BTB is detected, often forcing them to cull their entire herd. It results in significant financial ruin and emotional stress.
So the pro-culling argument rests on the belief that removing this wildlife reservoir is a necessary, albeit unfortunate, tool to protect the national cattle herd and the livelihoods tied to it.
And the government has consistently cited studies suggesting a link, justifying the policy as an essential disease control measure, even if May and his scientific advisors dispute the strength of the data regarding badger-to-cow transmission rates.
So May's response was to use his creative platform to amplify the opposition. His efforts led to the formation of the coalition Team Badger in 2013.
He teamed up with actor Brian Blessed and internet personality John T. Weeble-Picking to record a single.
The truly bizarre but effective Save the Badger, 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 a mashup of Queen's Flash and the viral Badger, Badger meme.
And it was a massive success. It charted at #1 on the iTunes Rock chart and reached number 79 on the overall UK singles chart. It just demonstrates his ability to leverage popular culture for a serious political cause.
And he maintained this data-driven focus well into the 2020s, releasing a documentary in 2024, Brian May, The Badgers, the Farmers, and Me,
which chronicled a 4-year investigation into the necessity and efficacy of these badger culling policies.
It is so evident from the source material that his political loyalties are strictly secondary to his animal welfare conviction.
Oh, completely. He was a lifelong Conservative Party voter, but stated he did not vote for them in 2010 due to their policies on fox hunting and badgers.
He was fiercely critical of then Prime Minister David Cameron for attempting to bring back a free vote on amending the fox hunting ban. He once referred to the pro-hunting organization in a live interview using extremely strong language.
It just demonstrates the depth of his personal fury over the issue.
He also demonstrated his nonpartisanship by endorsing candidates from different sides of the spectrum, a Green Party candidate, Caroline Lucas, and a Conservative candidate, Henry Smith, based purely on their animal welfare records.
This really highlights that his commitment is not to the party structure, but to the cause itself. It's a scientific approach of focusing on the outcome, not the ideology.
He also hasn't shied away from other major political shifts. In 2018, he famously called Brexit the stupidest thing we ever tried to do.
Expressing the view that the future lies in international cooperation, and noting that the political uncertainty caused him daily distress.
What's fascinating is his own personal metric for success. He stated in an interview that he would rather be remembered for his animal welfare work than for his music or scientific contributions.
That is a profound statement, considering the global scale of his artistic and academic accomplishments.
And that devotion extends beyond specific legislation to broad environmental action. He purchased 157 acres of land in Dorset.
And with local support, initiated a project to plant 100,000 trees to create a thriving wildlife habitat called Maze Wood, a lasting physical legacy of his environmental commitment.
Before we move on to his final key passion, we should quickly note some recent personal health milestones, as they provide necessary context for his continued fierce productivity.
In 2020, he suffered a small heart attack requiring stents, which he described as bringing him very near death. And more recently, in September 2024, he suffered a minor stroke, which temporarily cost him the use of his left arm.
But crucially, he confirmed after both events that he was still able to play the guitar.
The sources also note his shift to veganism since participating in the Veganuary Challenge in 2020. He has been very outspoken about the environmental and public health risks associated with intensive meat farming.
We've covered music, science, and activism. But there's one final passion that ties his scientific curiosity directly to his artistic and preservationist impulse: stereophotography.
Or 3D imaging. This is an incredibly niche and technical hobby that began for him way back in 1973. He became a lifelong collector and expert in Victorian-era stereophotography.
Stereoscopy, for the listener, is the process of creating the illusion of depth in an image by presenting two slightly offset photographs simultaneously to the left and right eyes, forcing the brain to merge them into a single 3D image.
And the Victorians were obsessed with it.
May's work here is properly scholarly. He hasn't just collected, he's cataloged and annotated. In 2009, with Elena Vidal, he published A Village Lost and Found, focusing on the work of the Victorian photographer T.R. Williams.
Restoring and presenting these rare 3D images. And then came the macabre and fascinating subject of diableries. Stereoscopic Adventures in Hell in 2013, which he co-authored.
That book collected rare French stereoscopic images from the 1860s and 70s, depicting these satirical scenes of daily life in hell.
Devils, skeletons, and demons just going about their business.
And the technical contribution here is key. He didn't just preserve the art, he engineered a tool to view it. He patented the OWL stereoscopic viewer, which is now sold commercially.
The OWL viewer is designed to be easily accessible and portable, and it's included with his published works. The design itself is an elegant piece of optical engineering, making the often cumbersome process of viewing stereoscopic cards simple and effective for a modern audience.
It's the ultimate convergence of his interests, isn't it? The scientific mind engineers a functional optical tool, the OWL viewer, to preserve and present his creative life.
Specifically his book, Queen in 3D, published in 2017. That book chronicled the band's 50-year history, using over 300 of May's own personal stereoscopic photos, capturing candid moments and stage scenes across decades.
It is the first book about the band published by one of its members, and it required his patented technology to be fully appreciated.
His dedication to this preservation and optical technology earned him significant recognition, including the Royal Photographic Society's Saxby Medal in 2012 for achievement in three-dimensional imaging.
And an honorary fellowship from Royal Holloway College in 2021 for preserving Victorian stereoscopy.
It's just clear that May used life itself as a series of interlocking, solvable problems, whether that problem is finding the perfect sustained guitar tone, calculating the velocity of space dust, designing a viewer, or challenging a government policy on the basis of data.
So what really stands out now that we've deeply surveyed the three pillars of Sir Brian May's extraordinary life?
For me, it's the unity of effort across wildly disparate domains. He brings the same painstaking technical rigor and commitment to depth to every single pursuit.
The time and precision required to build the Red Special from household scrap mirrors the decades-long process of submitting and defending a complex astrophysics thesis.
Right down to the specific optical instruments used.
This illustrates a key takeaway for you, the learner. Here's a man who delayed a high-level scientific career for music, achieved unparalleled success, and then successfully returned to his deferred passion, proving that intellectual potential doesn't just expire.
And then he uses the massive public platform built by his musical success to drive serious data-backed activism.
His life fundamentally illustrates that intellectual curiosity and deep technical engagement are highly transferable skills.
That ability to focus technically, to synthesize complex information, and to appreciate structure, that translates whether you are designing layered contrapuntal guitar harmonies, solving problems in zodiacal dust radial velocity, or engineering a consumer-friendly 3D viewer. It's all rooted in systematic, rigorous problem solving.
So here's our final provocative thought for you to chew on. So Brian May's journey demonstrates that when you apply intellectual rigor and technical dedication to one intensive area like building a world-famous guitar from fireplace wood, it creates a skill set that radically fuels high-level creativity and achievement in completely different fields decades later.
If you have a passion, a deep technical interest you put on hold, his life is the ultimate proof that it might just be waiting for the right time to become your next major world-class achievement. A truly astonishing individual who never compromised the depth of his engagement in anything he pursued.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the extraordinary world of Sir Brian May. We'll see you next time.